And welcome everyone to a Monday afternoon here on December 30th. I'm Andy Katz from March Madness and NCAA.com. We're going to look at the AP poll, the Power 36. And if you can throw in some questions, we'll take those as well here. I'm doing some studio this week out in Los Angeles. We've got Big East, Big Ten play starting up in earnest. We're going to have Pac-12 play later this week. ACC's beginning, SEC on the weekend, some non-conference games still going on this weekend. Got Georgia-Memphis, which at one point looked like a monster game in the preseason. Memphis has held up its end of the bargain, looking like a top 10, top 15, top 20 type team. Georgia, not so much. They're going to struggle to make the NCAA tournament. Maybe the NIT, we'll have to wait and see. All right, so a lot on the table this week. Let's address the poll first. AP poll and Power 36. For the second week in a row, there was no change. There's actually been no change here, okay? Gonzaga stays up top. We had 5 number ones already this season. This is number 6 in Gonzaga. And look, it looks like it's going to stay at least through toward the end of January. Not that Gonzaga can't get beat in other spots on the road in the WCC, but I would say right now their most likely losses would come at St. Mary's, at BYU. Those games are in February. Santa Clara is going to be difficult too because they're playing really well. I don't think they can beat Gonzaga, but still they're having a good season. So that's a possibility. BYU's played well in Spokane of late. Certainly under Dave Rose, we'll see how Mark Pope handles it. And so you never know. Certainly talented enough, the Oli Child's inside and TJ Haws to potentially knock off the Zags there. And certainly so does St. Mary's. St. Mary's has won there before. So that's where, if you're looking for a change in the number one, it's going to come possibly with the Zags. And Mark Few told me this last week when I was out there that, they're not going to, he'd be surprised, obviously, if they ran the table because the league is much better. All right, so here's where we get some differences, all right? Duke, 1 games without Trey Jones. They're at 2 in the AP poll. I have them at 4. I'm giving Auburn some love here. Still undefeated. I think they're the best team in the SEC. Chance to get back to the Final Four. Oregon, I love this Duck team. They're getting better. They're getting healthier. Peyton Pritchard right now would probably be the Pac-12 Player of the Year. So I feel pretty good about, giving Auburn and Oregon some love there. Duke. Then I put Kansas 5, Kansas 3 in the AP poll. So Kansas slid out when I had them out of the top 10, when I had them last Saturday and they lost to Villanova on the road. Game they basically blew. They had a chance to win that game. But look what they did after the fact. They came back. They went on the road, won at Stanford, a Stanford team that only lost 1 game. Obviously very thankful that they got home safely after the engine failure there and they had to go back to San Jose. But the game itself, showed a lot of grit from Kansas to come back on the road and win that game. Then after that, okay, Ohio State. This is where I don't understand the AP poll sometimes. And I used to be an AP poll voter. Okay, Ohio State, they're at 5. And West Virginia controlled the second half of that game and won the game over the weekend in Cleveland. Why wouldn't they drop out of the top 10? Okay, I got Baylor at 6. Love the Bears right now. West Virginia, okay, they're at 16 in the AP poll. I shot them all the way up to 7. The Mountaineers with a great win over Ohio State in the state of Ohio. They deserve a lot of credit for that. Memphis, pretty close. San Diego State, 13 AP. San Diego State, 9 for me. Butler, 11, 10. Villanova, 10, 11. I dropped Ohio State to 12. Michigan State, 13, 14. And then I got Kentucky and Louisville, 15, 16. Okay, Kentucky is 17. I don't understand. How can Louisville be 7 in the AP poll? Louisville's had 3 big games right now. Okay, they went 1 and 2. Lost to Texas Tech in New York, and Texas Tech did not have its best player, Jamias Ramsey, who's out with a hamstring. Beat Michigan at home. Just lost to Kentucky in overtime. 1 and 2 in their 3 biggest games so far. So I don't get that. Marquette doesn't even make top 25. I'm looking at mine. Michigan, close within a few spots. Penn State, I'm a little higher on. Northern Iowa, nowhere to be found in the AP poll. I have them right up ahead of Colorado. Wichita State, 24. We agree on that. Okay, Texas Tech, a little higher for them at 22. I got them at 30. Iowa 23. I got Iowa at 29. Dayton at 20. Dayton I have at 23. Florida State they have at 18. I got Florida State all the way up at 14. Big game coming up at Louisville. And here's the one that's befuddling to me. Arizona still in the top 25 in the AP poll. Arizona's last significant win, if you will, was home Illinois. They lost on the road to Baylor, lost at home to Gonzaga. The Wildcats still need to prove themselves. They're young, still need to prove themselves. And so I just don't see how they're a top 25 team right now. I didn't vote for them in my poll. Schools that I've bumped up in there, Arkansas, I put at 25 after the road win at Indiana. Colorado back up there at 22. St. Mary's right on the edge at 26. Creighton, DePaul, Xavier. This is now deep in the 36. 32 for USC. Houston. Okay, Houston won the Rainbow Classic by beating Washington. That bumped Washington out. Utah State, they're now fully healthy. Got a great Utah State-San Diego State game coming up this weekend. And then we've got St. John's at 35. That was the other game. Yes, I was drawing a blank there for a minute. Arizona played St. John's in San Francisco and lost. So it was another big game Arizona lost. And then Seton Hall, when they beat Maryland without their two big players, I reconsidered. Other teams lost. They moved Seton Hall in there. So that's my 36. That's the AP poll. Before we get to a couple questions, on March Madness 365, our podcast, interview with Dick Vitale, looking back at so far this season, and then his decade teams and his all-decade players. Brian Dutcher, San Diego State head coach, one of two unbeaten teams left, the other being Auburn. LaVall Jordan from Butler. Bulldogs now a contender in the Big East. They were picked at the bottom, 8th, I think, in the preseason. And then my predictions. Went 3-3 last weekend. We picked 12 games coming up this week. So many games, conference play going down in earnest. So all that will be released on late night, Monday night, Tuesday morning. You can see that link. So let's get to the questions. All right. I know a bunch flew by. All right. Joseph Doyle right off the bat. Auburn and Oregon ahead of Duke. You got to be kidding me. You always hold Duke back. Okay. Duke is 4. When we do our bracket in a week's time, right after the championship football game, if nothing changes, Duke's going to be a 1 seed. So keep that in mind. I don't hold them back. Daniel Owens, Wichita State's in the top 25. Yes, at 24. So you agree. Craig Wasserberg says, thanks for showing St. John some love. Well, they deserve it after beating West Virginia in the Garden and then Arizona. Ron says, why is Kansas still at 5? He's not too happy about that. The question kind of flew by. If West Virginia beats Kansas, are they in your top 3? Well, they would at least move up to 5. Okay. So let's see what happens. What would happen if Illinois beats Michigan State? That would give them wins over Michigan State and Michigan, and that would be a road win at Michigan State, and Illinois would certainly crack back up there. Do I think Aaron wants to know, do I think Oregon could be a number 1 seed? Yes. I think there's a chance you could get Oregon and Gonzaga. We almost never have 2 number 1 seeds come out of the West. That could happen. But Oregon's going to have to win the Pac-12 like outright. But it certainly could be. Donnie Cleary. I love the West Virginia fans. They are always engaged. AP is a joke. Why don't they give us respect? 16. Look, I was slow to get on the West Virginia bandwagon. I'm on it now. I hope you'll allow me to be on it, but I'm all in right now. Is Vernon Carey the freshman of the year? Asks Michael Ransom. Well, he's certainly one of the top 5. We'll see. I mean, right now, Anthony Edwards is having a monster season, but do you give it to a player who's not going to be in the NCAA tournament? Maybe, maybe not. Cole Anthony's injury takes him out of the running for now. We'll see when he comes back, if he comes back. John wants to know, can Kentucky make it back being a 1 seed? No. I shouldn't say no. Still a long season. They do have 2 great wins. Louisville home, Michigan State neutral. It would, I will never say never, but the Evansville loss, the Utah loss are really going to hurt them. Ohio State loss is not going to hurt them. So I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to say no. No, they can't. Neil says Colorado is going to beat Oregon. Well, check out March Madness 365 for my predictions. What would happen, asks Frankie, if San Diego State goes undefeated? Could there be 3 number 1 seeds out west? Ooh, that's a good question. There could. There could. Yes. A lot of things have to move. I think Gonzaga, San Diego State, and Oregon would really have to, well, San Diego State would have to go undefeated, sweep Utah State. Gonzaga, basically maybe one more loss the rest of the year. And Oregon really would have to decisively win the Pac-12. Maybe they lose 2 more games, max. And then other things would have to happen. Duke would have to falter a little, maybe, or they're the 4th. Kansas gets beat up in the Big 12. Auburn, as I'm high on Auburn, but Auburn for a 1 seed could be tough unless they had an undefeated or 1-loss season. Just because their non-conference strength of schedule doesn't compare. The SEC is not as strong this year, so it might be harder for them. Eric thinks I'm crazy to have Ohio State at 12. Well, they lost in Cleveland. They lost to Minnesota. So as much as I like this Ohio State team, in the last 3 weeks, they have not played as well as they did in the three weeks prior when they had those big-time 20-plus victories over Villanova, North Carolina, and Villanova, North Carolina, and Penn State. Joseph says Duke should be number 1 because no one's played a tougher schedule. Look, I'm not going to fight you on that if you want to do that. I mean, to me, in the top 4, you could make an argument in the Power 36. But they're a 1 seed. So, Joseph, they're a 1 seed right now. If that's okay with you. Okay, good question. I'm glad Brian McGinnis brought up Virginia. Because Virginia, I knew I forgot this. Virginia 19 in the AP poll. Okay, I love Virginia overall program, the job Tony's done, but look at what's happened so far this season. Early part defensively, then offensively completely down. Braxton Key gets hurt. They lost at home by 20-30 to South Carolina. I mean, they got blasted by South Carolina, a South Carolina team that has lost multiple games to teams on the lower end of Division I, just has not played well. So you can't excuse that. I mean, they're going to have to work back into the good graces here, and they probably will. Big East, says Tim, is nipping at the heels as being one of the toughest conferences of the year. That is no question. That's true. Dalton wants to know if AP will put Arkansas in the top 25 if they beat A&M. Well, they should already be in. Why is Kansas not a 1 seed? Asks Robbie Selman. In terms of a 1 seed right now, they would be. If I'm looking here, I'm eyeballing here. I think the 1 seeds right now would be Gonzaga, Duke, probably Gonzaga, Duke, Kansas, Oregon. I think right now those would be your 4 1s. You have to think about the order. Auburn doesn't have the strength of schedule right now. Eric Loftus, my thoughts on San Diego State being a top 3 team in the tournament? My thoughts are that it's probably going to happen. I mean, my issue is probably they're going to lose to Utah State possibly this weekend, but that might be their only loss in the league. But they could get swept by Utah State. So I think they've got a chance to be a top 4 line seed. Could they slide out of that? Yes, if they start taking on water in the Mountain West. ACC, Taylor says, looking pitiful. Well, let's look at this right now. If Cole Anthony comes back to North Carolina, that changes the dynamic. If Virginia gets its act together offensively, that changes. And defensively, obviously, they weren't tight against South Carolina. I think your teams that you should count on in the ACC to be there in the end right now, are Duke, Florida State, and Louisville. And in some form, Virginia will be there. Carolina is the one we don't know about yet. Tim Clark, I have 8 teams in the Big East, from the Big East in the Power 36. Yeah. Right now, the only one, let me think about that. Do I have more than that? Do I have 9? You may have miscounted. Let's see. We've got Butler, Villanova, Marquette, DePaul, Xavier, St. John's, Seton Hall, Creighton. So I'm just missing Providence and Georgetown right now. How many are going to make it is the question. I'm going to say 7. 7 for sure. Wouldn't be surprised if 8 get in. The question will be, to me, can Creighton and St. John's hold this up? There are the two that, to me, I would want to see. Can they hold it? Georgetown still could get there. It's just going to be hard for them depth-wise with so much that they've lost, with 4 players gone off to their original roster. And Providence, yes, they look good against Texas. They just took on so much water with all that they lost with games. All right, one more here. Frankie Keplinger says Gonzaga hasn't had a 100% healthy roster yet. Once they get all healthy, they should be even better. And he wishes Zach Norville will return. Yeah, Anton Watson just came back. Killian Tilly's not 100%. Once this team is clicking, the fact that Joel Ayayi is playing tremendously well, complimenting Admon Gilder and Ryan Woolridge, their backcourt's starting to get settled. Corey Kispert's not a glue guy. He is a big-time scorer. Love him. So they could be even better. It's crazy. They could be a Final Four team yet again and win the national championship. So, all right. A lot of great games. Check out March Madness 365 this week. Appreciate all your questions, your engagement here, Power 36 AP poll, and everything. We just love that you guys are completely engaged in what we're providing in our content at March Madness, Twitter, Facebook, and of course on ncaa.com. Have a great and safe and happy New Year, everyone.